like to start off by introducing the students. Start off with Paul.
What's your name? Paul Manning. Elias Cofield, senior at Eastside Memorial High School.
I'm going to say Amanda Rodriguez. One more time? Wait, what's that again? Trayvon?
Mix up, man.
I'm Darren Kent from Eastside Memorial.
And now I'm going to introduce the candidates. They're not in order, so if I say your name, please raise your hand and stand up. Mr. Sam Guzman.
He's coming later.
Okay. Reverend Dr. James Mathis.
Hi, Jamie.
Sorry.
No problem.
Miss Christine Brister. No.
She suspended her campaign.
Oh. Ms. Anne Reich.
Excellent. Yeah, that would be me.
Mr. Charlie Jackson. Ms. Gina Hinojosa. And finally, Mary Ellen Pietrzinski. Sorry.
Wait, one more. Amber Ellen.
Amber Evans.
Yeah.
Oh.
But they didn't know I was going to make it, so.
Okay. Sorry. Okay. We're about to start off as the ground rules for today. Each candidate gets 1 minute overview of the new direction she or he plans to take the district in with respect to students. So, who would like to start?
We'll just start this way. How about that? Go down. Okay, my name is Amber Ellens, and I'm running for the District 5 seat. And so our board is separated into districts, but then we have a couple at-large. We were talking to a few of y'all before about this. District 5 is basically Central Austin and Southwest Austin. And so pretty much all the students who track to Austin High School go in District 5. So what I'm hoping to bring to the board is experience and knowledge that I've gained after working for the last 13 years within our schools. My kids went to Woods, O. Henry, and Austin High, and I've been the PTA president at Woods and O. Henry. I've been on the campus advisory councils, and for the past 2 years, I was the president of the Austin Council of PTA. And what we did is really work with every PTA in the entire district, trying to engage our parents and train them, parents and teachers, on how to advocate for their students and also what they needed at their campus. So I want to bring that information to the board level. I want to engage our parents and our teachers into what is needed at each particular school. I also want the students to be involved and help us set direction on what are the classes that would make you excited to come to school? Why are we doing what we're doing from the education perspective, from your point of view? So that's really what I'm hoping to bring to the board because of my hands-on work that I've been doing so far.
Thank you.
I'm the Reverend Dr. Jamie Mathias. I am running for District 2, which is East Austin and Dove Springs. East Austin, essentially from 7th Street over to Springdale, and cuts up around Eastside Memorial High School down to Dove Springs. So, pause up. Let's see. I'm passionate about education. I am a proud product of public schools. I was the valedictorian of my class. I have earned 2 bachelor's degrees, 4 master's degrees, and a doctorate. I'm a certified teacher. I used to be a Spanish teacher. I was a high school president for 4 years. I'm a pastor. And I'm looking forward to helping give young people a hand up. Our platform, our opponent is not here yet for District 2. But the difference is, this election is about a difference in leadership styles. We want a top-down leadership style where our trustees believe that they know everything and impose their decisions on us and on our community. Or what I'm advocating for is a bottom-up style of leadership where all of us get together and talk about our future and how it is that we can better give a voice to our students and their families, to our teachers, staff members, and administrators. Reverend Dr. Jamie Mathias, good to be with you.
Thank you, Reverend.
Good evening, and I am Ann Teich, and you students are where it's at as far as I'm concerned. I'm a retired AISD middle school teacher, and I am running for District 3, which is basically the linear vertical team, but it does include some students from Reagan, McCallum, and Anderson, W. Webb, and all of Burnett Middle School, and then all the elementaries that are kind of attached to those. As a teacher, a former teacher, I think it's critical that we have your voice in what we're doing. You need to be telling us what motivates you to come to school, and I know it's not the high-stakes testing that gets you here. Okay? So, I would like us to have more options for students, work for more options in the way of college prep. I think we're getting that down pretty well, but there's some other avenues I think we need to explore, and that students need to have options, more career and technical education, so forth, that kind of thing. So I would be advocating for that, having student voices involved in what's going on campus level, and then also pushing for other options for you in terms of what you learn every day. Thank you for having me here, and I appreciate your interest.
Hi, I'm Charlie Jackson. I'm also running for District 5, which is downtown in West Austin. And I've lived in Austin about half my life. In fact, I would have gone to Reagan High School had we not moved. I grew up through kindergarten right here off of Loyola Lane, and I remember watching that stadium go up. Austin's changed a lot since I was a kid, but some things haven't changed, and one is the importance of education in our schools. So now that my kids are off in college, I wanted to become a lot more involved in schools. In the past, I worked in Del Valley School District. I worked with Region 13. I worked in a lot of the schools throughout AISD, mostly in the area of software and technology. But the reason I'm so excited to be here today, echoing Mrs. Teich's comments, it's all about y'all. And we need to have a school board that's focused on what kids need, what our students need at every level, at every campus, and that really needs to be the priority of our district. And what I've seen is that for the past few years, the board has gotten a little adrift, and they've gotten embroiled in other kinds of issues. But I'm real excited to be here today and hear about the kinds of issues that y'all are going to bring up.
And I'm Mary Ellen Petrosinski. I'm an 18-year resident of Austin. I've raised 2 children here with my husband that are, we are proud products of AISD schools, several of them. I've worked in the schools for the 18 years I've lived here, both as a volunteer and as a paid person now, as I run a charitable foundation that funds educational opportunity for the underserved in Austin. So what we look for, and one of the reasons I put my hat in the ring for board service, is pockets of inequity across the district, and try to bring innovative ideas and alternative resources to strengthen and equalize things for students. I am a fan of high quality options. I am a fan of workforce training in the schools, CTE, as well as other options so that students and their families can make good, high-quality choices for themselves for post-secondary education after high school. What else? I'm a former teacher. I'm an attorney. And I think that every kid counts, and that's what brought me to
And I should have said, I have to leave at 6:15 because I have a commitment with my son. So he can take my stand at that point. We'll put it back out.
So I'm Gina Hinojosa, and I'm running for the what's called the at-large seat, which just means I'm running citywide. So if you're of voting age and registered to vote, and you live in AISD, you live in the city of Austin mostly, then you can vote in my race. And just so everybody's clear, so Mary Ellen and I are running for the same spot. Oh, you should, okay, so okay, because we're not sitting everybody next to each other. I'm a lawyer. I've been a civil rights lawyer for almost 15 years here in Austin. Right now I'm a stay-at-home mom, and I also have a son in AISD. And I got engaged because my son's school was one of over a dozen proposed for closure. And I was at a school board meeting, 9 months pregnant till midnight, trying to figure out if the district was going to shut down my son's school. Lots of us were there. And then I was also disturbed by what happened with IDEA Charter School and Allen Elementary. And at first I thought those two things were separate, and I think because I'm a civil rights lawyer, I just have this sense of maybe overdeveloped sense of justice. It didn't seem right to me what was going on. And it seems like if that could happen there, it could happen to any of our schools, and my fear is that that continues to happen. And so I mention that because I think what happened and putting in a charter school against a community will should not happen again, and I would see to it as trustee that something like that would not happen again. Thank you.
Thank you. I first apologize for being late. I was at another school, elementary school in East Austin. I think that part of running in this particular election is training us for the Formula One, the races that are coming up. Almost two wrecks, but anyway, I appreciate being here. Thank you for inviting me. I think that presentations to the students, as we did yesterday, is one of the most important things that we can do as candidates. And because I mean, this is what we're all about, and that's the students. I've been in the district 35 years, actually in the same house 35 years. I haven't moved simply because I like the area, I like the people around me, and so I decided to run for school board in an unexpired term. But I didn't decide I was really drafted for it. An unexpired term, so I ran 2 years, and I ran for a 4-year term. I was reelected, and now I'm running for re-election again. I am a parent. There's no substitute for qualifying for being on the school board than being a parent. My 2 children went to school in our schools at Travis High School, and I have grandchildren now that attend the schools. One of my pleasures daily is to take them to school, and I pick them up in the afternoon. I have enjoyed serving on the school board quite a bit, but it is a challenge. Many people tell us that it's a thankless job, but it really isn't. Once we see the young faces of the small children in elementary schools, and indeed the faces of the high school students as they're graduating or getting ready to graduate, that's gratitude enough. That makes it very worthwhile. Who's keeping time? No. And so anyway, I'd like to say, only because it needs to be corrected, the IDEA school was brought, and it's a public charter, in district. The whole board voted for the in-district concept, and then the whole board voted 9-0 to ask the superintendent to go look for such a school. It was put out for an RFP, and it was let out to this particular entity. I accept that the process could have been better. I do accept that, and it will be. As a matter of fact, I supported the other in-district charter school, which obviously Ms. Hinojosa supports wholeheartedly, at Travis Heights. My grandson is at Travis Heights. So I supported that. As a matter of fact, I was the first person on the board that Austin Interfaith and Education Austin approached for the purpose of supporting that. Thank you.
Is there an agenda for him somewhere?
The one on the projector will be the most accurate.
I didn't see it up there.
Well,
Line 1.
and you also have a sign.
There's a sign.
Would it be okay to ask you to sit with your district? So when the students...
Sure.
Is that... We can just kind of rotate these three.
We do have some extra. You can stay there. He's going to sit. Yeah, that's right. And Amber's table.
I'm going to sit down.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Do this again, and then be open to their questions. I'm going to start with Paul Mann. Since IDA moved into Allen Elementary, the school no longer offers music class.
finish the question out. I loved music class in elementary schools, and other students also enjoyed elementary music. And I was wondering how cutting the music program could promote creativity with ideas, promote some of the posters and a lot of other advertisements. And how can a city like Austin, which is called the music capital of the world, allow music to disappear from its schools? And what would you do to ensure that all Austin ISD schools educate the whole child and that all students have the opportunity to learn about music and other fine arts?
Mr. Sam Guzman?
Well, I too love education, band, and music courses. My daughter played at the Travis High band in the mariachi. She played flute. My grandson now plays at Fulmore. It's a challenge because he plays football also, but he doesn't want to leave band, so he plays. So I'm obviously a strong proponent and strong supporter of music. I think it enhances the child overall. I think it helps his ability to study and to gain academically. I mean, that's data driven. That's been proven. So we just have to, on the board, we have to have the will to support those particular programs and make them a priority. And if cuts come up, we just have to, stand fast and keep them as well as some of the other fine arts courses.
I'm a musician, so I appreciate your question, Paul. Beginning at the age of 10, I was studying piano, organ, saxophone, trumpet, French horn, trumpet, bugle, we could go on. Austin is the live music capital of the world. But I think what I hear in your question is, did you mention a certain school in your question, IDEA? Yep. The challenge with IDEA is our opponent would lead you to believe that it's a public school. There are actually three types of schools. There are publicly run public schools, like Reagan. We love it. There are privately run public schools, like IDEA. And there are privately run private schools. There are lots of private schools. So we have to understand that the question here, Paul, is exactly this, that what we've done is our present board of directors has invited in this privately run public school. So as a member of the board of trustees, our hands are largely tied when it comes to the curricular decisions made by that private company and those who run that private school. Yikes, but I'm a musician. We live in the live music capital of the world. Paul and so many of the rest of us, I greatly appreciate where you're coming from. The challenge is really us looking at what it means to have a privately run public school. Thank you. Thank you for cutting me off. You got to be assertive with this group, right?
Yes. One of the things I found most compelling about my education was being in music. I play violin and piano. I sang in the choir. And as a teacher, as a parent of two kids who went through McCallum Fine Arts Academy, actually went to McCallum and then participated in some of the fine arts programs there, I'm a firm believer in having the arts in the schools. I think it's essential that we do. So it has to be a priority of the board. It has to be a direction that we give to the superintendent that it must be a priority, that we must have music programs K through 12 available for our students. And I believe there are some actions being taken now to strengthen our music programs, our art programs in the district, but it has to continue to be a priority. And when cuts are mentioned, we have to stop and say, I don't think so. We need to look at other places to make cuts if they have to be done. We can also leverage a lot of the resources that we have in this town. We have several universities. We have ACC, has an excellent music program. We have nonprofits that are involved in music and the arts. We need to leverage everything we can to bring them into our schools and keep that program strong.
I too have a vested interest in the fine arts. My daughter is just graduated from the university. How in trouble, y'all are just throwing me off tonight. My daughter just graduated from Austin High and is studying theater in college. When she was in 3rd grade, I think, 4th grade, the district was talking about cutting our special areas. So that was one of the first places that I got involved as a parent, to really go work with the board, talk to the board, work with our teachers, and keep that from happening. So Paul, I really, if you watched the chamber presentation that they put on Channel 22. That is my vision for the future, is that our district is really looking at the whole child in a very whole child way, which includes all of the fine arts and all of the ways that make us responsible adults. Because what we do on a test on one day in 4 hours has really very little indication of how we're going to contribute to our society in the future.
Right on time.
I'm going to talk about it in a little broader context because I think you'll find that we all support the arts. We're running for the school board, and the school board sits downtown and we set the direction for the whole school district. We don't run the day-to-day campuses. We're not involved in instruction. We're not involved in carrying out the stuff every day on the campus, but we set the direction for the district, such as all schools shall have libraries, all schools shall have the arts, and then we have to make the decisions on the budget each year. So we got to make sure that all of the money is available for the campuses to do what they need to. Now, every campus is going to ask and want to do different things at times, and we need to be able to support those things where we can. And then there are going to be those things that we as a city have decided that we want to have available in all of our schools. One of the challenges that I think we're facing between our current board and those of us that are running today is that we've seen that even though we're one school district, some schools seem to have a better deal than the other schools. And so we need to get some equity going to make sure everybody's got the same kinds of things. I know.
So I agree with everyone up here, and I think Gina is the same, that music and the arts are extremely important to the whole child, to a whole education. Both of my children took full advantage of the music programs here in AISD. They are both accomplished violinists. They played in city orchestra. They played in their school orchestras. I also play the piano, and so I know how important those things are to the full development of a person. What I do now in my job is look for outside resources when there aren't enough to make sure the priorities set by the board are implemented. And so I would agree with Ann that we need to pursue all kinds of outside collaborations to make sure that important programs like arts, music, are not cut from any of our schools. And as Charlie mentioned, we'll just have to go over the line.
So as you've heard, we're all supporters of the arts and music, and I think those are our community values, really. In this city, those things are important to us. One of my fears about bringing in charter schools to run our schools is it's somebody else's values, right? It's a private organization's values that might not be reflective of our community values, which trustees are elected in part to put into the decisions that they make about our district. So I think that's one of the concerns and issues, kind of broader issues when it comes to the arts. And then the other issue is equity. I heard a presentation from a very smart, talented young lady about her being able to take dance classes at the Ann Richards School. And mom got up during this presentation from another school and said, well, why can't my child have these kind of dance classes at my school? And why are, so we need to offer those types of opportunities to all our kids.
What will do to improve service across the district to pregnant and pregnancy teens? They take care of East Austin High School to not have enrolled room. When students' kids are sick, the teens' parents do the responsible things and stay home with them. They are coping with excused absences, which I learned leads to more and more teen parents drop out of school.
Right, and I have an example. Last week on Monday, one of my fellow classmates has a daughter, and I guess his daughter sat on a 2-month-old baby. She's 10 months, and she sat on a 2-month-old baby, and they called him to the daycare center, and they suspended his baby for a week. A 10-month-old baby, just because he sat on a 2-month-old baby. And so, basically, what it is that I think that the teachers in the daycare needs to have more training in what they're doing. I think they're doing a pretty good job, but I don't think that was something that they can suspend a baby for. She's only a baby. She doesn't know no better.
For the kindness, anybody needs to repeat the question? Okay. Mr. Guzman?
I'm sorry?
You want to start with a different person each time? Or?
Sure. Thank you for the example, Mr. Cofield, and for the question, Ms. Rodriguez. I don't know about what kind of training, I'm glad you raised this issue. I don't know what kind of training that the people who work in the daycares within the school district, this is within the school district, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Receive, and absolutely we need to have the best qualified people for that, and that's something that I look into as trustee. I'm the daughter of a very young, my mom was very young when she had me, and she was able to go through college and actually able to go through law school with me at her feet while she studied in the library. And so I think we need to give every opportunity to high school students or young people with children to still reach their dreams, because it's possible, and my life is testament to it being possible. So we need to be flexible. Thank you.
So likewise, I agree that the situation needs to be addressed. There's several things. The teacher training, I am a huge proponent of wherever the teacher is in AISD, whether it's in a child care center or in a traditional classroom. We need to be hearing from the teachers what are their difficulties and what they need support with, and developing them professionally to make sure they're up to the task that we're charging them with, in this case, taking care of many very young children. And that's a serious task, and it's a difficult task. As far as holistically providing those services across the schools that need it, I'm a huge supporter of that. It's, again, what we do at the foundation. We look for making sure that the needs of children that keep them in school, students so they can stay in school, are provided and are strong supports. And everyone gets there differently.
I remember when I worked in Del Valley that when I first started work there, I went to the in-district preschool or daycare, and the school district was getting a lot of criticism at the time for helping out young parents. And I remember the superintendent sitting up in the school board meeting saying, look, we're going to do this because we care about the kids. We want everyone to stay and finish high school, and we're going to do whatever it takes to do that. And basically drove the district and all of the staff to get in line and make sure that we did everything we could to support students staying in school as one of the goals. So, but we're here now. We're talking about AISD, and y'all have been in school. I imagine most of y'all are in high school. You've been in this school district for a long time, so I really want to pose a question. Do you feel that your board and your district is doing everything they can to support you?
No.
Oh.
No.
Answer that question.
Time's up. That's an interesting tactic.
Y'all have 90 seconds. Answer. I'm sure you're all familiar with the Everyday Counts campaign that the district has started. I think it's been almost 2 years now that they've been really, really focusing on getting our students to come to school, getting our parents to understand how important it is for our students to come to school. What I'm hearing from Rosalina and Eli is very disturbing and hypocritical, that we would be putting all of this effort into this campaign and then doing that to a fairly large group of our students. So that's disturbing, and I too, like Gina, would look into that, because I do think that it is training, but it is also a little bit, I think what Charlie was alluding to, it's culture. And we need to appreciate all of our students and what each of you are bringing to the table today. And it may be college, it may be career, it may be parenting. All of those things are important to us. And we need to show you that they're important and valuable. But we also have, are you familiar with Garza?
Ma'am, please.
Another question for that. Good meeting.
Well, and I will say, I have to run, and I'm so sorry that I have to go. I so appreciate y'all doing this, and so I'm sorry.
You have two parts to your question. The first one has to do with the quality of the daycare workers. And I believe that the daycares are subcontracted out to other providers. And I think that definitely needs to be scrutinized closely. Their training, daycare workers are typically not paid a lot, but that doesn't mean they can't be well trained. And there should be some process for your friend and other people in similar situations to address those concerns, some way of bringing those concerns to somebody who can make some decisions or that kind of thing. So I think that's a really important thing to look at. The other piece of that is making sure that all of our kids graduate and giving them opportunities to do that. That means we need to be pretty flexible in how we handle our educational opportunities. So the more options we have for night school, for a system like Garza High School where you can be self-paced, and absenteeism is an issue, but I think in terms of students who have children and who will be pulled out of school periodically, I think we need to work out some kind of a system so that time can be made up in some way, or education, I'm going to go back to being flexible, figuring out ways to help that student get that degree. So I think that's an important piece.
Let's start with Rosalina's question. I'll give you the number, you give me the fraction. Ready? Here in Austin, 66% of Hispanic students are being raised in poverty. How many is that? 2 out of every 3 Hispanic students. Here in Austin, 51% of Hispanic girls are pregnant by age 18. What's the fraction? 1 out of every 2 Hispanic girls is pregnant by the age of 18. Here in Austin, 38% of Hispanic students are dropping out before graduating from high school. 38 or 40%, that's 2 out of every 5. We need to do something about these numbers. The challenge that I see is that if we continue doing what we've done during these past years, statistically, 1 out of every 8 Hispanic students will graduate from college. What I'm all for is higher graduation rates and higher college and career readiness among our students. And so I'm counting on your support, because it's these issues that we need to be tackling, Rosalina. So I appreciate very much you bringing up the issue of teen pregnancy in our community, because we as members of the Board of Trustees have to be tackling these issues. Thank you.
Thank you. We're out of time.
Somebody made a big mistake with your example, and I don't know if that was raised as an issue or complaint, because obviously there needs to be. There's lack of training, but there's also lack of sensitivity with regard to dealing with a pregnant teenager and their child. And so it does need to be looked into. I've always felt that Austin ISD, and I'm only one board member, but cares about the program for pregnant teenagers, but doesn't put enough resources into it. So we're either going to care enough to put the resources, or it's going to be a mediocre program. I mean, I think there's the commitment, but as long as there's not the funds, obviously that commitment goes by the wayside. When I raise the issue of inequality for East Austin schools, the answer readily is funding is not the only answer. Well, obviously it's not, but it goes a long way to resolving the matter and the issue.
You guys 10 seconds. Next topic, St. Select Schools, Mr. Trayvon Johnson and Mr. Nate Sullivan.
Trayvon, senior. Recently it has been proposed to turn Pierce, Garcia, and in the future perhaps other Eastside schools into same-sex schools. At Eastside Memorial we have a very active GSA with many lesbian, gay, bisexual, and questioning students. We have worked hard to make sure students are respected and our campus is accepting of all students. If LGBT students are sent to same-sex schools, what would you do to ensure that students are respected?
This is one of the reasons why I think that we as a community need to continue speaking up against single-sex schools. Because we all know that when it comes to things like gender, we tend to put people into boxes. Either you're white or black or red or yellow or green or blue or whatever. We try to categorize ourselves that way. It's the same when it comes to gender. Is it really that way? I would argue that it's not. The challenge then becomes, what do we do with single-sex schools, right? If you raise the issue of the LGBT community, if a person identifies as a member of that community, at which school would he or she feel more at home at? The challenge is this. On July the 31st, I was at LVJ High School when we had a community forum, and we were getting feedback. Everyone in the audience had a clicker saying, are you in support of single-sex schools? And they showed us the graphs in real time, right on the screen. They showed the graphs. And there was this many people who were in favor of them, this many people who were undecided, and this many people who said, no, we're not in favor. And still we're pushing this issue. I have a problem with that. Thank you.
Mr. Jackson?
Well, and again, I would expand the concept a little bit. Whenever you hear somebody at the board level saying, we want to try something out in your school, the first thing you should ask is, well, if it works, yeah, we want it. But then you ought to ask yourself, well, why aren't you, if it works, if it's something really good and better, why aren't they trying it out at the other schools? What we have, I think, in particular in the single-sex school, is discussion. The real discussion is not being discussed, and that is, how many single parents do we have in some of our schools, and the struggles that parents are having connecting with schools and supporting their own kids when they're working two jobs, they don't have other support. People are asking, I need a role model, I need more help. So what we should be doing is providing more help to single parent families. And then it's not an issue of whether it should be same-sex or not, it's whether we should be providing more support for schools that need more support in a particular area. It's not an issue of gay or straight, because in AISD, every child should feel safe in going to school, regardless of which school they go to. So, and guaranteed, we live in a community that understands and knows that, and y'all can live safely in AISD knowing that they're not going to kick you out of school because of the length of your hair or whether you're gay or straight.
Thank you.
First of all, I hope we never get to that point where you have to worry about being in a school, if you're in the right school, single-sex school. I don't think there's enough evidence to show that sending kids to same-sex schools improves their education at all. I'm a firm believer in coeducational education. So that's one thing I would not be in favor of. Number two, if it should happen, then there needs to be sensitivity training, there needs to be extra diligence given on the part of the administration and teachers to making sure that all kids are protected. Kids should feel comfortable coming to teachers and administrators and saying, hey, this is going on, I need it addressed. But backing up to my first statement, we shouldn't be going down that road. We shouldn't have to try to categorize people by their sexes and think that that's going to solve all the problems of their education in their schools. So I would not be in favor of that. I'm just smart.
So I am in favor of high-quality options. You hear me say that all across the city. That doesn't matter where. I want them everywhere. But I don't know the data on single gender schools, and I can't weigh one way or the other whether that is a high-quality option. It may be. The second part of that is I call them choices. So if we were to have such a choice within AISD, then it's a choice to go there, not a a place where you're forced to go. And so I think that one of the benefits of a large urban district is that one size doesn't fit all for people's education. I have 2 children. They are very different from one another. We are all very different from one another. And I believe that the individual and the family has the ability to make good choices for themselves, and we can offer choices.
Thank you, Representative. Mr. Guzman?
You know, the discussions that have been going on with the board have been going on at the same at the same sessions that you all have attended, or some of you have attended. We have not had any discussions otherwise. I don't know any more about the information of the data than has been made public, and I don't know how I feel about it because I don't have all the information. An expert, I would say an expert. I wasn't able to be there. I had to go to a family funeral. Dr. Kunjufu came in to address the community. My opponent disagreed with him vehemently in writing, almost insulting. I couldn't believe it. And Bishop Sterling Lance responded to him from the standpoint of Sterling Lance was saying, we know what our community is about. We know what their needs, and we're sensitive to it. We don't need to be told by somebody else. And that's why Dr. Kunjufu was here. But if he disagrees with him, that's fine. But that's the issue. We need to keep the dialogue without being nasty about it. And keep the dialogue going, keep talking about it.
Sir?
And thank you.
I think that might be the best question we've had in this whole campaign. No one's asked that question. I had not, frankly, thought about that, and it is a good question and one that needs to be given serious consideration, and maybe one of the best reasons not to move forward with single-gender schools in Pierce and Garcia, because while there are choices, single-gender, there's the Ann Richards School, which is a choice for girls. It's not the neighborhood school that kids are zoned to. It's much less of a choice when your neighborhood school is transformed into a single gender school, and then you're forced to affirmatively opt out and go somewhere else. So I think that's a great question and something that needs serious consideration. I think we probably have more fundamental issues at Pierce and Garcia than whether we have mixed genders in the school. Like, for instance, Garcia's had something like 4 principals in 5 years. It's not even a matter of putting extra resources. It's a matter of let's have some stability with what's going on there and make sure that we're supporting the school the way it needs to be supported.
Thank you. Mr. Sullivan?
Well, my question falls into no sense of justice to myself. Are we prepared for social awkwardness? You see, coming from elementary, we all, you know what I'm saying, together, girl and boy. What would happen, you know what I'm saying, that same sex school, what would happen? I see future reference. I see a new breed. You feel me? I see a new breed. So I'm asking, would y'all keep the same teachers, or would y'all hire new teachers around, you know what I'm saying, the same sex?
Mr. Nelson?
I don't understand the model too well. I think it is a distraction probably from what really needs to be addressing, like I just said. We need stability, make sure we have the resources to support the campus. Whoever works in our school needs to be properly educated and trained, and I've not heard that they need other different kinds of teachers to go into those schools. But I don't know.
I'm going to go back to research, and the research does not demonstrate that single-sex schools, especially if they're attract attendance-wise, that you have a demonstrably better education going to a single-sex school than you would to a co-ed school. So whether or not the teacher should be, is your question whether or not the teacher should be the same sex as the kids they're teaching, or they should be, or could you elaborate a little bit?
It's more of a preparedness, you know what I'm saying?
Being prepared to deal with
It's
all
social
girls or all
awkwardness,
boys and
yes.
all that kind of thing. Well, I'm going to go back to saying that I think coeducation is a good way for you to figure out how you're going to operate in the real world. And, if you make a choice to go to Ann Richards or to an all-boys school, that kind of thing, that's your choice. I mean, I can't argue against that. But if you are forced to go into, I think as Ms. Petrosinski mentioned, if you're forced to go into a school, you make a choice. You know, I'm either going to go to this all-girl or this all-boys school and that kind of thing, and I'm not even sure of my own sexual identity. I have some real problems with that, and I'm going to go back to the research. Research doesn't really show that, you know, educating all girls or all boys together is going to make a difference. So.
Well, when it comes to social awkwardness, one of the things we appreciate in Austin is diversity. Cultures, I mean, we're just all kinds of diversity. And one of the things I've seen in teacher education is there's not usually that much training. Usually it's focused on academic areas. There is some, if you go and look at how teachers are trained and get their degree at the university, there is some touching on social issues and social awkwardness and dealing with people of different races and different economic and socioeconomic backgrounds. But one of the things you don't see is things like gender being discussed openly, and even among the staff and the teachers in the school district much. Fortunately, we have outside groups like the Southern Poverty Law Center, which has teaching tolerance, where they try to provide materials and bring training into the schools to help educate school campuses and teachers more about sensitivity to other issues.
So likewise, I really am not sure of the model of the research that would indicate whether it works or it doesn't to have single sex. I do know that we are getting good results at the Enrichment School, but again, part of that model is the choice. Nobody's forced to go there. And as far as making sure that the teachers are adept at dealing with particular issues if they do find themselves in that circumstance, I am a huge proponent of teacher training. And so all kinds of issues come into teacher training, not just academic. Whether it's the child care center we talked about earlier, whether it's a particular classroom dynamic that's very unusual for a teacher that they didn't study in school, training to be a teacher, then those things have to be addressed. One of the things that I suggest in addressing some of those issues that are a little more unique is teacher-to-teacher mentoring, principal-to-principal mentoring. If we were to use a unique model like that, I'd be looking for that kind of resource to support it.
I think that your question is important because this world is filled with many, many different people. And we're quick to categorize them and put them into boxes, boys, girls, men, women, etc. Challenges, on Sunday evening, I met the loveliest woman, and we had a great conversation. And at the end, my friend told me, she's not a woman. So the world is more complex than we'd like to believe. The research is not there, and the question becomes, if we do suddenly start to build these silos or these schools, these boxes in which research to put people, there's some serious questions that come with that. So certainly I'm excited by the conversation. We live in Austin, a very progressive, open-minded city. So let's continue to have these conversations, and let's see where it goes. But what I'm hearing and the conversations I'm having is not a great amount of support for single-sex schools.
I can tell you that Ms. Bradley is the foremost advocate for our community, has always been, and is supported across the board. She'll listen to the community, but we need to continue. She's making an effort. She's been there a long time, and she's making an effort to have an impact on a situation that has not changed for decades. And so she's making a real effort to do that. Now, I myself don't know whether it's the right thing or not at this time, because I'm listening like you all are listening. And so the main thing is to keep having a continuous dialogue, an honest dialogue in that respect, and directly with her for that matter, because she represents that district that is impacted. And let me tell you, she cares.
This topic, DREAM Act, I will be President Obama recently ordered his immigration department to begin bringing dreamers, young people who are brought to this country at a young age out of the shadows, allowing them to work and reside in this country legally if temporary. On many of our Eastside campuses, a large part of the population, including the one we are at now, is composed of dreamers. Yes, the district seems to act like dreamers are not high on their scale of importance. Where are the programs, where are the services for the students to take the advantage of the new federal initiatives and other resources? What would you do as a trustee to fight for programs and services for the dreamers? Mr. Guzman?
Well, first of all, that term, dreamer, is excellent. I mean, I don't know who came up with it, but it's an excellent term. Just real quick, because I only have a minute, there's the program called Deferred Action that I think the school district ought to be looking at. I've talked to Olga Cuella at La Fuente, and what I'd like to do is bring that to the eligible for that deferred action. And they don't need, the key here is that they don't need to go to a lawyer and spend money. They can go through that process with that program that Olga has in partnership with the district, and I think we'll go a long way in terms of actually effectuating the DREAM Act at a younger age, because the DREAM Act, for that matter, was geared, or is the emphasis is on college students, which is wonderful, that we were losing so much talent. But I think that the Deferred Action Program would work well in our schools.
Thank you. Reverend?
I think what we have to do first is we have to acknowledge that these persons are among us, that they are part of us, that they're part of our community. Here in Austin, according to the 2010 census, 153,000 people living in Austin were born in Mexico. We need to make sure that we are serving them and their families well. As a board of trustees, we need to be thinking about what it's like to be in their position. Many of these people are trying to survive in a foreign culture, not speaking the language, having to work 2 or 3 jobs to be able to support several children. So first job that we have as trustees is to be aware of the situation. Second, we need to find how it is that we are going to invest in the programs that are going to be helpful to them. For students who are arriving here from other countries, what does that mean? English, that they're English language learners. It means that their parents also have difficulty speaking the language. So it's our responsibility as members of the Board of Trustees to take a look at those issues and to see how it is that we can best serve those students and their families.
You asked where are the programs and services. I think it's a very good question, and I think that's something that the board needs to, once again, give direction. If those programs and services are not available at Eastside Memorial or at Lanier or at Reagan or wherever, then the board needs to be asking why are they not available and why are there not resources being directed towards kids who want to become successful citizens, who want to go through our educational program. So I think it's a question of board directing the superintendent and saying that this is a priority, that we need to be making sure that our students who are the dreamers, that they get the services that they need, and that their families do too. I mean, it's part and parcel of the whole thing. If we need to have more parent resources available at these schools to make sure that students are in school, that they feel safe, and that there's not always this threat of having to leave, I think that we need to work on that also. So, again, it has to be a board priority for this to be successful.
Thank you. Mr. Jackson?
I've lived in Austin a long time, and I remember the sanctuary movement, and particularly during the 80s, when we had lots of folks moving here from Guatemala, from El Salvador, from Nicaragua, and Austin is the kind of city we said we will take people in. We don't ask them whether they're citizens or not, what their family background is, and particularly for the school district, and I think this goes for ACC as well. We want everybody to be successful and be educated. We don't need to be asking people, and this was before Obama made his changes when the DREAM Act wasn't passed by Congress. We don't need to be asking people citizenship status. We just need to find out what people need, but we do need those services in the school district so that parents and kids can feel free to go and ask for resources and know that they're not going to face being arrested and taken downtown to Travis County or shipped out of the country. And I think the good thing is we live in a city that supports those kinds of things.
So I would agree with the whole panel, and the way, I guess the little bit of different take I would put on it is, I think it's a waste of resource not to tap into something like the DREAM Act that's available to such a large percentage of our population that needs it. We as a school district have an obligation to educate our students and our families to take full advantage of a program like that. It helps each individual, it helps us as a community, and it helps our whole school district to thrive with more resources.
So this is an excellent question and one that has not been raised. And I'm not just saying that. I mean, this is really just a unique and very thoughtful question. I think it's an example of why it's so important to be speaking with students and community members, because wonderful ideas come from these conversations. Absolutely, we should be prioritizing this as a district. It means a lot to me. My mother was a Mexican immigrant, was deported with her brothers and sisters as a child. I was talking to a leader in the Hispanic chamber yesterday about how he grew up always fearing, because he was undocumented, that he would be deported. It's a terrible way. I can't imagine a terrible way to live. So we have some experts in that field who live in this city, organizations that are doing just that, preparing families for DREAM Act status, and we need to be partnering with them, and especially in the district when we have such a large population that's affected by it.
Next topic, bilingual education by Ms.
How can you give us more information for students who speak second language, and give us more advice for classes and everything? Because I have that experience. I went to different high school first year, and then they don't give me all the information about that. They know only because I'm born here. They know I know a lot of English, but they're wrong. I know more Spanish, but they don't give me information. So only because I'm from Austin, they're like, oh, she don't need that class. They're not know if they know more Spanish than English.
So you're saying they give you information about what's going on in school, mostly in English, and you would appreciate it personally in Spanish as well? Is that basically your question? Well, I mean, that's a great point. And you're saying if somebody is born in a Latin-speaking country, in a Spanish-speaking country, then they get stuff in Spanish and you don't? Is that what's happening? Well, I had not heard that before, and that makes sense, that you need information in the language that you can understand it best. And so that's something that we as a district need to prioritize. And we need to make sure that we are prioritizing services for English language learners. I've heard some complaints that we should look into. I mean, definitely it's important to our education system and important to the families and the kids who need those services. And so absolutely you should have information in Spanish.
I would have to, of course, agree with that, and that gets to my platform about we're all different, and so it sounds like there's a breakdown, and I had never heard this either, a breakdown possibly in our counseling system, or really teacher outreach. You know, the teacher that's working with you ought to be able to figure that out, and then know by training that's provided to him or her what to do to help you get the services that you deserve, and not make those decisions based on where it says that you came from to get to this school. You know, that you were an Austin native to start with really doesn't impact the level of English that you're speaking, or Spanish for that matter. So I think it comes down to taking a more individual approach and training teachers and counselors to be able to do that, and then finding the services that we deserve.
We have a school district that is aware and trying to do more bilingually in terms of materials, education, resources, information. Pero necesitamos mucho más. We need to do a lot more in a town where 2/3 of our students are of Hispanic origin. We've got people coming here from all over the world. They're coming from cultures everywhere, not all speaking English when they arrive, not all speaking Spanish either. And we, as a school district, really need to be providing more and better resources. And not only that, we need to be celebrating. Someone who already is fluent in Spanish and speaks a little English is already better at becoming bilingual and a world citizen than somebody who just speaks English. And we really need to be celebrating and crediting our schools where we have students who have a high degree of bilingualism already, whether that's native or not. And that needs to be put in, accounted for in our school metrics and our district metrics.
I'm a little concerned that you've had difficulty conveying your needs to teachers, administrators, is that correct? That you need more information in Spanish than you do in English and that kind of thing? And could I ask you how long you've been fighting this battle?
All my life.
All your life, okay. All right, so in all the schools you've gone to, you have come up against the stone wall. People don't understand that just because you were born here in Austin, and you speak more Spanish than you do English, okay? So there's a lack of sensitivity there. They're not listening to you. And that's a concern of mine too, because bottom line, your teachers at least should be listening to you and saying, oh, she does need this information, and then they should be advocating for you. So question of training, sensitivity, I think that's important. Have you found other students with similar concerns? Okay, then organizing those students and going and talking with administrators and teachers and then moving on up the line. And I think it should be a priority of the district that we address those kinds of individual needs.
It's 6:50. If we leave right now, we can be in Mexico by 10 o'clock this evening. That's how close we are. So when we think of multicultural or bilingual issues, we often think of English and Spanish. Did you know that there are more than 140 languages spoken by the parents of our AISD students? That creates special challenges when it comes to bilingual or multicultural education. In District 2, we have the great pride of hosting International High School. For those of you who go to Eastside Memorial High School, you see our students there every day. Students who are acculturating to our language, to our culture, to our values. So it seems that our challenge as a school district is how it is that we can better serve those students and their families who come to us from so many different cultural contexts. Yes, from Spanish-speaking nations, from as close as Mexico, but from many others as well. So we as a school district need to be thinking more creatively about how to better serve students and families regardless of their nationality. Vietnamese, Korean, you name the language. There are parents here. We need to be able to reach out to them and their students. Thank you.
Well, bilingual education is the law. And where it's not being provided where it's needed is against the law. It's not being provided, first of all. And yeah, it's a lack of sensitivity, and somebody's not paying attention to your situation and the many students that you're talking about. But essentially, if they're not doing that, they're violating the law. And so we've moved from bilingual education to making the transition to dual language, and perhaps dual language, when it's applied across the board and when it takes hold completely, would resolve that problem. For now, you have that problem. We have 87,000 students. 23,000 of those are limited English speakers, and that's 26% of the population. So obviously, we have the population that needs those services. Our dual language program is going to be probably the best in the state, maybe the nation.
Sir?
We just hired.
This topic will be teacher turnover.
I'm actually asking a question for another student, and she wants to know, what would you do to keep teachers in our schools? It's really disruptive to student learning when we lose teachers that we love and are comfortable with every year. If teachers have to leave because their school closes or is taken over by a charter school, what will you do to ensure that they get a job?
Ms. Tadish?
Well, that is a real problem, not only school being closed and being taken over, but also just the pressures that are on teachers nowadays to be in the classroom, to hang in there. I would make, again, that a priority, to keep teachers in schools, to make sure that they find places in the district if they have to be displaced, if because of state law the school has to be closed. If that teacher has demonstrated through evaluations that they're a quality teacher and that they need to be with our students, would do what I can to keep that teacher, those teachers in our schools, because we don't need to be getting rid of our really good teachers at all. So that would be a priority of mine, and I think should be a priority of the board's, to keep and retain excellent quality teachers. I would resist attempts to have schools turned over to charters managed by private companies, because I think if we have an excellent teaching staff, we don't need to be replacing them with others, and we need to make sure that their working conditions are such that they want to stay where they are. And that may involve some other things that need to be done also.
One of the problems that sometimes happens in a large school district is that we get some distance between district staff and school board members and teachers and campuses and what's going on in the schools. And I'll use the issue of teacher turnover as an example. Too often, people who are out in the school are just looking at numbers. Their student is a number, a campus is a number, a scorecard is a number. And that's their approach to making changes or improvements into the school. Let's use Allen Elementary as an example. When Allen was struggling as a campus, some folks down at the district office said, what can we do to support it? And in came outside corporation, charter school. And then they had all this discussion and turned it over to the council. Well, what they forgot was nobody went to school and said, what do the teachers on that school campus need? What do the students on that school campus need? People with real names. They just looked at it as a number, so they brought in an idea, but none of those teachers are there anymore.
Likewise, I would agree. What I say across the city is where we have to get most of our information about what's happening in our schools is by open communication with our teachers. So nationally, we lose teachers at a high rate in the first 5 years that they teach. The same is similar in AISD. We recruit great teachers, but they leave because they're not professionally developing, they're not supported in what needs they're facing in the classroom. So processes by which we are hearing what their concerns are and helping them with resources to develop and grow in the profession that they chose, that they're passionate about. And as far as, I wasn't on the board at the time they brought in IDEA. I am in.
So teachers have a lot of pressures on them. It's not an easy job, and all sorts of pressures from high stakes testing to just being able to get their job right. It takes education and skill, and it takes just kind of a talent or a desire and a gift almost to be a teacher. And so we need to support our teachers the best we can. And some have said it, and I just want to reiterate that it is so important that we ask teachers what it is they need for every decision we make about a campus. I had a teacher, high school teacher, who broke down in tears talking to me about how she loves to teach, but she's probably going to leave the profession because she is pulled in too many directions, and they don't get funded on their campus what she needs, what they need. They're getting things imposed, very top-down decision making, and so we need to be making decisions from budgeting to all sorts of decisions by asking teachers and parents and students what it is they need.
Well, without teachers, we don't have schools. Other than the students, they're probably our most important we are very competitive, the teachers. Now, with idea, and I may not have the exact number, pretty close, maybe one or two. They hired 20 teachers, 13 of them are from Austin. They were Austin School District. Check that out and on one or the other, one point or the other, let me know. 13 of them, and ask them. We were talking about asking teachers, ask them how they feel about teaching them.
Thank you. You asked the question as if it's never happened here in Austin that a school's been taken over and closed. We all know it happened in Idea Alley. Lina Acosta. Lina Acosta. I married her a few years ago to her husband then. Her students tell me she was a quality teacher. She was told to pack up her classroom and to go after 12 years of teaching at that school. I think I have a problem with this. I think that we as a community have to make sure that we are recruiting but also retaining quality teachers. I regret it. We could talk about this for such a long time. You know, in only 96 or 60 seconds, let's give it a lot of time. I have to leave, unfortunately, to my next commitment. But follow online, www.avoiceforprogress.com. Find our Facebook page, Reverend Dr. Jamie Mathias. Follow us on Twitter, Reverend Dr. Jamie. He's been reading during this meeting. And you'll find out more about our campaign and what we're working on.
Thank you very much. Next topic, transportation. Ms. Andrea Nenere.
So we just heard this question again last night from students, and I hope whoever ends up on the school board takes to heart. This is a real issue that needs to be addressed. And so we need to cut through this red tape of, okay, it's 2 miles or 5 miles, you can't get a bus. We need to just be listening to the community and what the community needs. And it takes resources, and it's going to be difficult to find the resources, but we haven't even had the conversation yet of what is it that the community needs. I participated in a school meeting when there were kids and parents who needed a bus to take their kids there. Apartments take up about 30 kids, but because they were within that radius, the bus couldn't get the bus there. So these kids were going to walk in the rain. When it rained, there were many times they couldn't get to school. And the teacher gave the parents and teachers essentially 30 days to get there. That's unacceptable. We could, again, we just need to begin with all the things that we can do. Transportation is a huge issue, and we looked at, we've been looking at a long time ago, and I am a huge fan of collaboration to try to fill some of these gaps. We do have the agreement with Cap Metro. I share the concern of the parents about riding Cap Metro buses, and I think with a collaboration such as we have with some of the magnet bus lines that are dedicated to the students and are not ridden by the public is one thing that we can pursue in addition to balancing the budget and making this a priority because it is an issue of equity.
One of the problems that we have here at AIC, we live in a real wealthy city, yet we take $150 million out of the school district and send it away because the state legislature isn't funding other schools around the state the way they're supposed to. So we would have enough money to have better transportation, better schools, better salaries, a lot of things. But the board, and we're running for the board, classrooms. And it's going to be a real challenge for us. I can't make any promises what we're going to do about the transportation. But on the equity issue, that is something we can look at because, yeah.
Yes. I agree with a lot of what my fellow candidates have said, but I would also go to the communities around the schools where there are issues and ask for their input. What suggestions do you have? If Capital Metro is not a good option and we can't get school buses out here, what suggestion? How can we work together to solve this problem? Because funding is going to be an issue, absolutely. There may be some kids who are comfortable with riding Capital Metro. Well, let's pursue that option. If we can get more buses out to certain schools and make sure that their after-school programs are strong, so the students can get to them and then get back home, I think that's important too. But I think an important piece of this is inviting the community to come in around these schools and say, what can we do together? What would you be most comfortable with in terms of transportation options, understanding that we have some funding issues here? So I think we need to explore what we already have, plus invite the community input to that.
High stakes testing, Mr. Trey Johnson.
What would you do to address the issue of testing? We take doing tests have too much power over our future and the jobs of many of our teachers. No one is excited about learning when all they do is prep for reading lists and stressful tests.
Amen. One of the reasons that I retired when I did 7 years ago was because I was tired of teaching to the test. I was a reading teacher, so I totally sympathize with what you're saying. There are adults organized in this state who are pushing back against that high stakes testing. If you're not organized as students yet, you should be pushing against that. Also, going and talking to legislators, writing legislators, and saying this does not motivate us. Okay, that's one piece of it, the advocacy piece, trying to eliminate it. The other piece is we need to look at in the district at how much extra pressure is being put on the classroom, on teachers, on students, with extra testing to figure out whether or not you're going to pass that next round of tests. And I think that's something that the school district can address. Take off that extra pressure and trust teachers to be able to figure out if the student is not going to be, ready for that test. Okay, well, what needs to be done to get that student ready for that test? Okay? Instead of having the benchmarks and all that kind of thing going on all the time, because that's another layer of testing, and that doesn't really motivate anybody to stay in school. So, I'm with that.
Thank you. Mr. Next.
Everybody, even the most conservative politicians today, they realize that high stakes testing has gone way overboard, and they're looking for ways to roll it back a little bit. There's a lot of disagreement, though, about how that would be done. But one of the things that we have unique here at AISD in Austin is that the people who wrote these tests, the people who wrote the laws, the people who imposed them on our school, they're all in District 5, they're all downtown, they're at the Capitol, they're at PTA, and we're at Cassie, and we're up on Lamont. These people that live here are people that we can have a better dialogue with on a regular basis about these kinds of issues. And that's a unique thing that we have in Austin, and that's a unique role that our board gets to play, legislatures here, and PTA as well. Unfortunately, we've had a board that's pretty much sat back for the last 20 years and let these things happen, and they haven't been a voice, and they haven't been in opposition to some of these extreme measures.
I completely agree with everything that's been said. I have 2 children that went through the district, and back then, it was high stakes testing. It was TOCS and TOS and TEES, and each year they seem to make it more and more vital for the child to do well on these tests. And I could see the desire in my children drop as that happens. So clearly, as Charlie says, just about everyone is convinced, and it's just a matter of acting on it now. So advocacy and things that we can change within the district to take some of the high stakes out of high stakes testing for our children and our
So I agree with what everybody said. Nobody is more than pessimistic than people is with testing. And so whenever that's the case, usually you find that there's a big money future on the other side of the education system. kids from the, and parents too, by the way, from the elementary schools to go to the junior highs and talk to kids and teachers there, because a lot of it is just perception. And so we need to break through that perception. And then also we just need to make sure we give the schools, all schools, the supports they need and make them places people want to be. We have magnet programs, for instance, all over, not all over, but we have some magnets in the city. And we should be thinking about where there are schools that are struggling to have people there, to get people there. Are there magnet schools that the community wants, maybe like dual language or whatever the community wants, to bring families back into those schools?
Thank you. Ms. P?
I would agree with that, and that model has actually worked in the past in Austin in some instances. The other thing that I've seen that works is keeping a core of strong teachers, not losing them year after year, and keeping a principal for a period of time long enough to grow that strong culture and strong identification of a school. Each of these schools has really great kids, teachers, programs, and so if we can grow that by giving the support to a principal, in many of the instances, the principal has turned over so many times. We've lost the principal. At Reagan, I happen to know, with Annabelle Garza, we've kept her for a period of time. She has been supported in what she's needed, and she's growing a strong culture here. And I work in the school quite frequently. We have some programs here that I watch, and they have grown astronomically. AP program, for example, under her.
Well, it's not just a perception of the schools, it's a perception of lots of stuff here in Austin. Like I said, I've lived in Austin over half my life. I've lived and worked in North Austin, East Austin, Southeast Austin. Now I live in downtown, and I'm running for a seat that includes all of West Austin. And it's not that it's not that people aren't kind in Austin. It's not that people don't enjoy being in a city like ours, but there aren't a lot of connections. We have certain institutions in this town that can bring people together, can highlight and celebrate things that are going on, and get in the case of the schools, it would be the school board and the district office, and really celebrating and bringing things and bringing people together around the city. In the case of the city, it would be the city council. And we need institutions, we need leaders who will not only elevate items and issues from particular communities around town, but that will bring people together so that we are all one community and we're not bunches of little islands.
One of the hardest things to do is to change perception of the school. I'm working with Lanier right now trying to do that very thing. And I'm a Lanier grad from 70, and so I've watched the school change over the years and the community change over the years. But I live in that area, and I have neighborhood connections, and I've taken the initiative to go and try to work with the staff and the community around there to change those perceptions about Lanier. So identifying community leaders, that's something that schools can work on. Identifying community leaders, bringing them into the schools, working with students and staff at the schools, and talking about, and parents also, talking about how can we change. One of the best ways I know of to change perceptions is for you to be ambassadors and go out and talk to other schools at the beginning of the schools. Come and talk to the school board. And I agree with Mr. Jackson, the school board can be, or some of your great champions about what's going on, what's going right at your school, and for them to talk to the community. I don't want to just talk about Lanier being a great school. I want to talk about Eastside, because I know it's a great school. I have sub there. Okay? I want to talk about Travis, Reagan. I want all the schools, Eastside schools. So I think it's incumbent on me if I'm a board member to do that kind of thing.
Thank you. Well, let's open the floor now to the public. If you have any questions.
What Nick was talking about earlier, like when you think about, or really I'll answer, and like the same-sex schools would close down the school to give a new option, and the school board president now came to talk to us last year at Eastside, and was like all for options in the school district as a whole. And my question is like, if you're gonna have options, why take away an option to create a new one? Why not, if y'all really want this new option, put in resources to build a school for this new option? There's only one of two new tech schools in Austin, and Aikens is the other one, which we all know is over capacity. And so now there's no new tech option for anybody outside of the Kansas district.
So making that a priority to strengthen and give more,
And make Eastside another high-tech option? Is that what you're talking about, trying to work on that?
Or just
Keeping it that way and not I agree with that, because I'm a strong proponent of great technical education. So I think we need to be working on this prior to the board. I agree. We need to create choices in the district, but once again, I think we need to go back to the communities around these schools and say, is this something that you want? Is this something that we can work on together so that we can strengthen Eastside and we can pull in more people from across the district like they pull over to Lhasa or going to Aikens and that kind of thing? I think that's something that, the board members need to be involved in, this community dialogue, inviting the communities to say, come in and say, how can we do this together? Instead of what typically happens is there's a decision made downtown and then it's, oh, we think we know what's best for you, okay? And it takes time. It's a real complex situation. It takes a lot of conversation and deciding, prioritizing the resources too. But if we don't ask the schools that are directly involved and we just say, well, maybe we should shut you down because it's more efficient, I think that's really missing the boat there. I think we need to engage.
Well, two things on options, and I'll get to the current school board president in a second. First one, imagine if we lived in a city where every campus had something that was special and unique, so that everybody was like, I want to go to that school. If I want to study ballet, I want to go to that school. If I want to do high-tech careers, I want to go to that school. If I want to do this, that not only does each campus have something unique that they can have pride in, but we're really building some of these things across the school. And what we see is that some schools have some really great options, and other schools don't have anything at all. And we need to make sure that we've got really great options for everybody. Now, it doesn't mean that every school's going to have every option, but we've got those things. But back to the school board president, and it's particularly on the issue of an all-male school. And we were discussing that as an option for parents to go to an all-male school. So I said to him, well, you live over here by Henry. Why don't we make that the first option? Why don't we make that the first all-male school? And pure silence after that. So that's the example of the kind of changes we need to have at the school board. We need to quit having school board members who want to impose their thought of an option on another school. And like Ann said, we need to have community discussions about what options do people want for their schools.
I completely agree. I mean, it is about options. It is about having each school have something special that sets them apart, that makes them proud, that makes people in the community or from other communities want to go there for that specific option. And I am a huge fan, and I think we're really lacking growing our certificates in technical education. And when I hear it across the community, that there aren't enough slots, we've got to listen to them. That is critical for our student success. I think that reaching out to the community, as has been highlighted in several of the issues that have come in recent past, IDEA Charter, the facilities master planning, hearing from the community what they want helps to set how you go forward with what options where. There's no other way.
So, it sounds like the issue is, why are we imposing options on a community when those aren't the community's options? Right? Those aren't very good options. My son is 7, and when he was 5, we said, okay, you have this option or that option. It's like, I don't like my options. And so, yeah, a 5-year-old can figure out that that's not fair. Those aren't real options. And so options need to be, like I think everybody has said, community-based. What is it the community wants? What would get this community excited about being at this school? What are those options? Because those are Those are real options, those are true options. So I think that's an excellent point. I don't know if it was a question or a point, but it's excellent both ways.
Anybody else have other questions?
Unless there's another student who wants to ask one. Okay. So after IDEA happened and everything, first I want to preface this with we had a lot of questions about teachers, talking about teachers, how teachers can organize, teachers can do these things, teachers got fired or whatever. After IDEA happened, teachers were standing up and saying, or while it's happening, hey, like, don't close down our school, we're doing well. Even after it happened, they're still, like, saying, please don't do this, like, you know, we're working hard, and the district literally silenced these teachers, pulling teachers into the principal's office saying, you know, hey, you need to stop talking like this because this is a district thing now. So as a board, what would you do to try to help protect these teachers as they're trying to stick up for their students? Because we know that teachers are the experts in education. So what would you do as a board to try to help protect those teachers and actually let them have their voice?
I wish we had some current trustees still here
right,
to
that's
answer
what I wanted to ask
to that question, but along in the same vein, I don't know if you read the Statesman story where it was the last day of Allen Elementary, and they had teachers quoted in the paper, and they could not be interviewed by the paper unless a district representative was present. That blew my mind. That is just so not what Austin is about, and I think there's no place for that. Our teachers, my background is I did labor and employment law and discrimination law mostly, and you know, teachers have rights just like anybody else, and actually wisdom that is unique to teachers. And so I think it's the school board's responsibility to make sure that's a priority and make sure that doesn't, and to just be upfront and honest and direct and say that's not tolerated in this district.
And I completely agree. I was a teacher, and I happened to teach in a school where we were really listened to. And there was a culture of going to the teachers about what's going on in your classroom, what are you struggling with, what do you need help with. And so that is the culture that I would like to see within AISD. And there are definite changes that need to be made to create those kinds of open lines of communication with our teachers, with our principals.
Here's why I think we need a change on the school board. You heard a little bit about it tonight when we were talking about IDEA. About, well, 20 teachers were replaced with 13 teachers from around the district. Well, that's true. Those are numbers. But what they don't seem to get down at the school board meeting is that there were 20 teachers who were let go from that campus, who had worked on the campus and knew the parents and knew the students in the community. They didn't care about the individual people, and they didn't care about the individual students that were impacted by their decision. They were just looking at the number and the name of that campus. And that's what we have down here at the school board today. So if they have something like, well, if there's a policy in place where a teacher can't talk to the press without a school member present, those are policies that are set by the board. If they're being set by the superintendent, then the superintendent's out of line because those are policies being set by the board, and the board should be setting those policies and instructing across the district that the superintendent and staff will carry out those policies. And what we've had is a board who says on one hand, well, I wanted to do these things, but the superintendent did other things. No, every time they say that, it's their responsibility. They're on the board, they're in those meetings, they approve the budget, and they approve those policies. So don't let the board members get by with saying, well, it wasn't our fault, somebody at district staff did it.
Bottom line, no teacher, no staff member should fear to lose their job because they're critical thinkers. And basically that's what we're looking at. When people question policies and want to know why things are being done the way they're being done, then that's critical thinking, and that's something that all teachers are about. I mean, that's what one of the number one skills we should be teaching our kids is to be critical thinkers. And teachers are supposed to be preparing citizens for our democracy, and you don't you don't maintain a democracy if you don't have people thinking about what's going on and asking questions and saying, is this fair? Is this not fair? What can we do? How can we talk together to maximize resources to achieve a goal? We're setting this goal and that kind of thing. So if we're, if teachers are being treated like, let's say, if they're not being allowed to have a voice and they're being punished for having that voice, and that's a policy of the district, then I think that definitely needs to be addressed at the board level, because that's not creating a healthy educational climate for our students or for our teachers, for any of our staff at all. So I would definitely want to be, if I'm elected to the board, that would be something I'll be looking at, absolutely. And having conversation with everyone from the superintendent all the way down to the chief schools officer, like, why are teachers afraid to speak their minds? Why are they not being consulted about decisions being made on their campuses?
I don't know if this is the right, like, if this will work really. Like, that education is becoming like more and more filled with politics. And that was just a statement, but my question is, how do y'all feel about the board voting to extend Dr. Karstarfen's contract and the politics behind that?
It's my understanding that staff in the district have one-year contracts, and I was concerned when I heard about that, and then when it actually passed. I know that people say, well, new board members would not have enough experience with the superintendent past performance to be able to make an informed decision. Well, then let's push back that decision into the spring so that we've had 6 months with her and we can figure out, whether or not we approve of what she's done, whether she's met the goals of the district and that kind of thing. So I'm a little concerned about that, especially since other staff are not getting any more than 1 year at a time. So it is a concern. It is a concern. So how long does she take?
2015. So, and that was a great lesson for you. So let's take that as a lesson learned about how politics really operates and how you were taught in school. So in school they say, well, there's a board and they all consider all the items and then they make a rational decision based on data and input, and then they come up with the best decision. Well, that's not really how it works. How it works is people come to the board with particular opinions and agenda. Then there are people that aren't on the board that offer their opinion and agenda to the board members. And what is going on, particularly in Austin right now, in the case of the superintendent's contract, are two different groups. One group that likes the direction that the school district's going in and wants to keep it going in the same direction it's going in, and others who would like to see a change in the direction of the school district.
We're going to do that 1 minute time.
Okay. That's fine.
So I too, when I heard that was going to happen, I did feel that was rushed. And given the history we've had with the last public communication issues, what we've learned, I would hope, is that part of the issue is the timeline on things. So I understood the concern that the new board members would not have a long enough relationship with the superintendent to weigh in on the issues, but I agree with Ann that a more plausible solution would be push back on the length of time.
So I was surprised and troubled by that decision, and not because of the merits of whether or not Maria Karstarfen should be given an extension in her contract, but because it was the first day of early vote, and this board who would not be working with the superintendent during this extension, because she already has 1 year extension, so now it's 2 years into the future, right?
So she's not 3 years now?
So she's 2 years into the future.
Till June 2015.
So it seemed to me to be poor form to bind a future board to work with the superintendent Um, so yeah, I was troubled by that. I wish, and it made the issue of the superintendent more of a more at issue during this election. And there are all sorts of other issues too that need to be addressed.
On your question?
I was going to ask if you think turning over public schools to private companies was a good idea.
So you're talking about like idea? Okay. So I don't agree that charter schools are public schools. Let's start with that. They might be called that, but I think who knows what an oxymoron is, right? To me, it's an oxymoron to call it a public school because it's not governed by the people who you elect. It's governed by an appointed board for a nonprofit, and to me, that is what the essence of a public school is that they're accountable to the people, that the people who are making the decisions at the top are accountable to voters. And I think that's so important to our democracy. I think that's so important to our community. So I don't think it's wise. In some parts of the country, many of our public schools have been turned into charters, and I think because the community's just given up on public schools. We have struggling schools, but we're not in a place to give up. We have no business giving up on public schools. We can address them as public schools.
So there is a disagreement, difference of opinion there. A charter comes from the state of Texas or the district, so in that sense, they are a public entity. They do have a board that answers to our board, so they do answer to the public. It is not as direct as a traditional public school, but it is in fact a public school. And the other thing that we need to watch in AISD as well as across the country is that students, parents are making decisions to leave traditional public schools and go to public charters. When that happens, we lose funding. And so the in-district charter model is the best case scenario for AISD if it is successful. And I'm not saying that it's a good idea unless it's a high-performing school. But if it is, we've saved losing children that were leaving anyway, and we're going to other schools. And some of those options cause the money to go to places where we're losing.
I'm going to make this one short because I know I've been talking long. I don't think there's anything that a charter school can do that we can't do in our public schools. That's simple.
Bottom line, charters, there's research to show that charters don't, as a whole, outperform public schools. And I think there's a richness that we can offer in our public schools that sometimes we don't get with charters. To me, charters still involve a lot of choice, and when you have charters that pull kids from all over the district, you pull them away from their neighborhood schools, I have a problem with that. And there's a lot of money being made by some charters, so we have to be careful about, looking at the charters that are in the Austin area, number one, and looking at their scores and looking at they're pulling kids out of our public schools. And my next thing is going to be, we need to make sure that our public schools are safe, healthy places where kids want to be, so that parents choose to keep their kids in our schools. So I think that needs to be our focus as a district, that we keep our schools for the public that are attractive to parents so that they don't opt out. And I think that we have let these opportunities kind of slide by over the years. We've just kind of said, oh, well, okay, so KIP's over there, and now NIOS is over there, and Harmony's over there, and all the Paragon Prep and all those other places. So we need to be working harder at making sure we keep our kids in our public schools.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have run out of time. Sorry we couldn't be able to get to your questions. We'd like to thank you for being here.
Modern.
Thank you, candidates, for being here. Appreciate your time. Good job.
Great question.
And I challenge you to stay involved.
And students, we're counting your ballots right now, so if you hang out for about 30 more seconds, we can tell you.
So who is 18, who is registered to vote?
Better than yes. Look. Y'all don't have to be registered to vote to participate in this election.
That's right.
You find a candidate that you like, that you want to work on their campaign, you want to block walk, you want to phone call, you want to get other people involved, get involved. That's how I got involved when I was a kid. And now I'm running for office.
We're adding up the ballots. Y'all don't leave.
Thank you. It was great.
Thanks.
Hi.
Bye-bye.
Great job.
Are you recording me?
I guess you're not on our email list.
You don't want me to get this on camera.
What are your thoughts after this exciting event?
Oh, it was so wonderful. We got a lot of great answers to all of our questions. Too bad Mr. Guzman had to leave early and he couldn't hear my question because I really wanted him to answer it.
What was your question? We'll send in the video.
I wanted to ask him what would he do to help to rebuild the reputation of all East Austin schools, which is the district that he represents.
Oh, okay. So what the question was?
I don't, but I
Oh, it's just one announcement.
What do you think about the new school district?
For tonight, Teachers Key District 2, Mr. Reverend Jaime Maria, Rose London. District 3, Miss Ann Teich. District 5, Mr. Jackson. And North Position 8, Ms. Hinojosa. And those are some of them.